Hello, I'm Trudy Friend, and after the previous programmes when I showed my strokes in pencil and in watercolour with the brush, I'm now going to put them together in watercolour to show you how I depict some trees in a little riverside view. So the first thing is to choose quite a neutral colour, and I'm going for an area where it's very important to get the relationships right. I'm relating a wall or part of it to a tree that's leaning, giving me a very interesting shape between, and the wall behind is bringing the light side of the tree forward. But as you see from that, I have changed it slightly because I wanted to make the composition a little bit more interesting with regard to this wall at the back, and I've also asked the trees to shuffle across a little bit to change that slightly. So I'm going to put in my dark behind first, and it's just very quick strokes. This image that I've already got on the paper is very lightly painted in because I put this sheet of paper over a drawing that I'd done up against a window, and you could use a light box or a window, it doesn't matter. And what happens is you can see through it and you can put these marks on to get you started. But when I did it with Inktense pencil, because that's permanent, and that means that when you put that on, once it's dry, I can put the paper in water and stretch it normally. Now I haven't stretched this bit, but if you want to stretch your paper, that's what I advise you to do. Now I'm starting to just put some strokes in quite loosely to darken this tree, and I'm doing them at random at the moment, and I'll bring them together a little bit later on. I'm thinking about a little bit of a dark recess in this stone here, so I'm putting that in, and again the stone below. And these stones are on an uneven bit of wall, so I don't have to make this too tidy, and they're coming down to a relationship with the grass. And as soon as I'm near the grass, I do some pull down strokes which will allow this grass to be light and come up in front of it. I just dry the brush and start pushing this still wet pigment so that I can get a bit of texture on the stones. So I'm just pushing it about, and that gets a little bit of texture on the wall through there, and a little bit up here as well. Now in order that that wall may stand out, I'm going to put a bit of green behind. So a little bit of green tucking in will get those light stones on the wall to stand forward. And again I dry the brush off and just blend it out. And already you can see them standing forward there. And at the bottom here we have some stones, and a little bit of water is showing through. So I'm just going to very gently put a few marks there so that I'm saying that's a tiny piece of water that I can see before we get to the shadow or the reflection of that tree in the water there, which I'll just bring down very quickly. And I'm going to just add that little bit of green the other side so that the light side of the tree stands out, and take that across. And I usually push the brush so that it's a bit of dry brush that comes down and gives me some interest, which can later be turned into things like stones or undulations. There's a little bit of wall coming up here, so I'm going to push the green up around it and blend it out. Now I really love this paper. It's Saunders Waterford CP Knot. It's got a lovely texture to it, and it means that I can let this dry brush effect happen so easily because of this strong texture on the paper. And behind that again I'm going to just enhance the wall with elongated strokes at random. Some of them are going to be highlighted areas, so you're going to see a little bit of the undercolour showing through. Others will be darker. So I'm just getting the feel of that wall, and it's narrow stones, so I needn't make them too big, and I just pull it along, and as I get to the end I usually like it to just drift away to vignette it out into the shape of the paper. I've got a light top to a wall here, so I'm painting round that bit of the wall, and again I'm going to vignette it out very, very roughly so that I've got the texture going out away there. I'm coming back to this tree now, the same sort of thing over here, up to the light side of the tree and out into the stone shapes. and then the wall that comes down here. I'm going to look at some of the shapes that I have as the light paper and just go around them a little, and then onto the shadow side of it. There's no really strong shadow area here. It's a pretty dull day, but the tops of the walls are catching the light, but there aren't too many cast shadows as such, it's just the reflection in the water from that tree. I'm going to go back with this wall now so that I can begin to see that shape, very loosely applied and very textured, and some pull down strokes to allow the light grass to come up in front, and a little bit of dark behind it over here, cutting in against the top stone. And I really want to go up to it in a way here to bring that forward. I've got these trees here, so I'm going to go on my toes. I'm using quite a delicate brush here. This is the large detailer, and I can pull down. Now you can either go outwards and upwards as the growth would be, or you can pull down, and sometimes it's easier to do the latter because then you don't end up with perhaps a heavier mark at the end if you find it difficult to be light-handed on this. So I'm putting in some of these little trees here. You needn't do the whole lot at the moment. You can just put in a few to give the idea of them and think that later you might just add a few more, because they are quite prolific in the winter. There's a lot of bare branches, and we're coming to the top of the wall over here. And there are a few more up there, but I'm not going to put those in so heavily. And I'm dancing about and going back over these to enhance some of the darks, just so that I've got an idea building up in my mind of what they're going to look like. These are the shadow shapes within. And the unevenness of me painting it with these dry brush strokes and dragging it across have actually given me shapes without me having to think about them. Because I'm always looking for happy accidents, something I didn't intend to happen appearing, and it looks quite natural. So that wall's beginning to come now, and I'm going to go down the tree a little bit. And have a dark in here. And above it there. So I've really got the area that I wanted to start off with, and then a nice little dark area in here, that wall beyond. And I'm leaving a little bit of a light edge along that bit so that the lights just hit it there. And then you can dance along again with these uneven strokes with just a few of the pieces of indentation where you want the shadow shapes to emerge. And again on the other piece of wall that's here. I'm using very neutral colours, and I'm not mixing too much at the moment because I like to glaze afterwards and put over another colour to change it slightly in places. So if I keep it reasonably neutral at the moment, then we've got some grass coming down. Now I've got some stones here, and I'm just quickly putting the shadow side in, a few there as well. And following the shape of them, quite at random. And I think a couple more here, just the shadow sides of them. You can almost do a crisscross stroke down the bottom. When you crisscross in, it just gives you some shadow shapes and suggests the stones that are going to be down there. You needn't put too much detail down there. And another one here. So it's going along quite quickly, and over here I'm going to build up a little bit of twig and foliage behind, just so that I can bring out the top of the wall in these neutral colours. These fine brushes are so helpful to be able to get an impression very quickly of a mass of twigs just by using the tip of the brush. and then vignette out. And looking at some of the trees now. These can be just simple silhouette shapes back here, but you're looking for interest of shape. So it's twists and turns, and there are some very interesting trees that have some lovely angles on them. And the whole point of getting this dark shape behind is to take it right up to that wall at the top and then work away from it. And there's another one over here. Really get the interest and the angles. If you wanted something like a branch to cross another tree, you can just paint up, two and away, and you've got the light branch crossing the tree, and then you put a little bit of extra for counter change, so that'll be in front. And they go up to the wall as well. And in the background here we have distant hills, and they can be quite faint. And it's up to the top of the distant field and away into the push-pull stroke to suggest the mass of foliage or whatever is behind. It can be hills sometimes, it can be just the trees, and you just go up to there and away. And they bring the top of the wall forward.